We are those guys. You see these guys over there? Well, what about those guys? I'm Alex Hardy, joined as always, former 10-year NFL safety Nick Ferguson. What's going on, Nick? We are wrapped up now with 12 weeks, right? Week 12 is done. Monday Night Football. We're coming off the Carolina Panthers traveling to Santa Clara, and the 49ers win 20-9. We'll call this the Christian McCaffrey game.
Yeah.
Getting into how incredible he was. But first, Nick, what's going on, my man? Your Niners won.
My Niners. Good job by the Niners capping off of Week 12 with a dub. But it wasn't exactly how I believe Kyle Shanahan might have dialed it up. But hey, as they say, you win, and a win is a win, and that's the only thing that matters. Now, I will say this, and I received a couple of calls here tonight about this, saying, hey, man, what the hell is going on with Brock Purdy? And
Sure.
It's time to insert Mac Jones. And I'm like, whoa.
My guy.
Slow down.
I don't know if I'd even go that far, but we do have to note 23 of 32, the 3 interceptions.
Yes.
Bryce Young had two picks of his own, I think. All in all, I mean, what did you see from, Kyle Shanahan's offense? And look, if the formula is to give the ball to Christian McCaffrey 30 times, I'm shocked that, Brock Purdy's even throwing the ball 10 yards plus down the field. I think that was the stat, right? 1 for 8 when he's targeting receivers, 10 or more yards down the field, and all 3 interceptions when he's trying to go downfield.
Well, let's put things in perspective. All things being considered, is that, what are the ideal weapons for Brock Purdy? And the time that he was with the 49ers and he played well, so much so the team gave him a new contract.
Yes.
What was happening for them? There was a Deebo Samuel. There was a Brandon Ayuk, right? There was a George Kittle. And oh, by the way, there was a Christian McCaffrey. So 2 of those guys I mentioned, one is no longer with the team, and Deebo Samuel's Brandon Ayuk, we haven't seen him all season. And George Kittle just came back, just like Brock Purdy just came back. And Juwan Jennings has become their number 1 receiver. And Ricky Pearsall, who they drafted in the first round out of the University of Florida. To me, hey, man, you might as well put him on a milk carton because he's been missing offensively. But thank the heavens that you have CMC to just throw the ball to, hand the ball to. And some of those throws from Brock Purdy, Monday Night Football, some of them were a little off. I mean, and listen, we got to give Carolina DB some credit. We just can't say, well, it was just Brock Purdy. I mean, he was trying to throw, I think, maybe to, did I say Greg Jennings? I know I did. But Juwan Jennings.
Juwan Jennings. I think you said Juwan the first time, then went to Mr. Put the team on his back.
I wanted to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. But Juwan Jennings looked like he was trying to sit down in the hole, but the DB came from left to right, reading Brock Purdy, jumped right on it. Sometimes that happens, man. Some of the times those guys watch film, but in Brock Purdy's case, you want to get that ball out sooner opposed to later. There was another takeaway, I think it was going to Ricky Pearsall in the end zone, but the DB did a great job just out jumping him for the ball. So those things happen, but it's not a time, Alex, to call for Mac Jones. Miss me with that.
If you say so. I mean, shout out, you mentioned one of J.C. Horn's 2 picks. He ends up leaving this game with a concussion, football is just this cruel, cruel sport where you're having a great game. You as a corner keeping your team in this game despite how lackluster the offense has been, and just take a rough hit that ultimately knocks you out. I think the formula here is that, look, if the 49ers offense needed a spark, that would require the Carolina Panthers to actually do something offensively. They get a late touchdown in the second half. Teteroa McMillan looking every part worth the high draft capital, the top 10 selection that they used on him. Again, 2 catches, 35 yards, but the 29-yard TD where he gets open out wide and cutting down the middle of the field. He's been able to line up all over the field, which I've been excited about because we're seeing a healthy Jalen Coker. We're seeing a healthy Xavier Legette, and just putting McMillan in different spots on the field allows the Panthers to exploit opposing defenses as best that they can, especially playing out of the slot. As banged up as the Niners had been, their secondary has held up well as opposed to, that pass rush, those linebackers led by Fred Warner. But that was the interesting thing for me, kind of transitioning to Carolina, is that Bryce Young, as well as he had played against the Atlanta Falcons, he comes back a week later, and Canales has him bootlegging a lot, kind of running away from a 49ers pass rush that, without Nick Bosa, without the first-round rookie Mykel Williams, Bryce Huff did come back, but it seemed like the Panthers were afraid of a Niners pass rush that really hadn't been getting home at any point in the season after losing Bosa.
Well, I'm sure Dave Canales was very fond of Robert Saleh and his defense, regardless of which guys are in the lineup or not. They are one of the better teams in the league, even though they're not that young. Oh, they are that young, excuse me, as far as getting pressure and simulated pressure at that. I thought there was, there wasn't anything wrong with the game plan because I saw Bryce Young a couple of times look like he was dead to rights for a sack, and eyes in the back of his head comes out the back door to extend the play and pick up some yardage. So he did a great job on that part. But here's the thing with the league, man. You can't be too high. You can't be too low. When we look around the league at every team and every quarterback, we've seen struggles from the top tier quarterbacks,
Yep.
from the mid-level to bottom quarterbacks. So this is a year where we're looking at defensive units getting that much better, but we're also seeing offensive struggles, and a lot of them. And just like I told you about Brock Purdy and a limited amount of skilled players, I would say the same thing could be said for that of, Bryce Young. I mean, you talk about Ted McMillan, you have him and Leggett, but still, you don't have a tight end that can really threaten
Yeah.
down the middle. You have a run game. So trying to put all of that together is somewhat of a conundrum from Dave Canales, but I felt as though this was a great game plan, and both defensive units play well.
That they did. The Panthers wanted to get a lead and then run that football. As great as Rico Dowdle has been, it's just hard to do that when, the Niners went wire to wire here. The Bryce Young thing for me, just as we go back to the rest of Sunday, before we do, though, Bryce Young, 8-26 against 30 other National Football League teams, 4-1 in his career against the Atlanta Falcons. Maybe there's something to it. It's just, you can't play Atlanta every single week if you're Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. As strong as the Niners look, 8-4, despite all of their injuries, we saw some inspired play, frankly, out of the entire NFC West. The Rams absolutely taking care of the Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. The Seahawks, keeping Tennessee a little bit close, but I digress. The NFC looks great. The West is leading the charge, and you could say the same thing for the AFC West. Why don't we go back to Kansas City and Indianapolis? The Chiefs in action with your Broncos and the Chargers off last week. However, the Chiefs gaining ground, keeping their season alive. 23-20, the final in overtime against now an 8-3 Indianapolis.
Yeah, you know what? That was a game that I'm sure, Shane Steichen, looking back at it, both he and Dan Jones are going to say, well, we let that one slip through our hands. We had an opportunity to eliminate the Kansas City Chiefs from the playoffs and totally crush them and their hopes at home, but they didn't. That didn't work, and it didn't happen, obviously. When the game went into overtime, I'm just like, okay, well, the odds-on favorite goes to the home team because we know how these things play out in Arrowhead, and we know how, I would say then, the officials kind of officiate the game. But that wasn't a game where I would say that there was a lot of interference by the officials, and there were certain calls that went towards Kansas City. But I was just looking for them an efficiency standpoint. When you have the Kansas City Chiefs on the rope 20-9 at home, and then you allow them to tie and then win.
It was at Arrowhead. It was at Arrowhead.
Yes. So it's so many opportunities that the Colts have offensively to make the necessary plays to get the game-winning field goal or extend the drive. They just couldn't connect. I mean, balls were, overthrown, some misconnections with guys. So this is going to be a game, if it comes back, and it possibly could come back to haunt, the Colts, that they had an opportunity to seal the fate of Kansas City, and they didn't shut the door.
So they get spotted the 7-0 lead after, I believe, the first pass of the game for Mahomes gets picked off of the line of scrimmage by Laiatu Latu, right? So they're up 7-0. They get that 8-play, 75-yard touchdown. That's pretty much the offense, right? You mentioned 20-9. They get the pair of field goal drives in the third quarter. Here's the fourth quarter for the Colts once they take that 20-9 lead. The Chiefs start with the football, fumble it, and the Colts recover it in the Chiefs were in the red zone at the time, but they go 3-and-out, 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 overtime. They get the ball first, 3-and-out, and the Chiefs win on that field goal drive. So it's a complete collapse, and they just were absolutely suffocated on offense. And I mentioned the entire, offense of the game is that, look, they get a 2-play, 3-yard touchdown drive to start the game because one of the great quarterbacks of this era, the greatest of this era, gets picked at the line of scrimmage. They get 1 touchdown drive, and to show for it for the rest of the day, just 2 field goal drives and 5 3-and-outs. So that's not how you win the AFC. The Denver Broncos don't play, and their playoff positioning gets even better because of that Colts loss. You could say the same for a certain New England Patriots team, the only team in the National Football League with 10 wins, but we don't necessarily, Nick, need to hang out there for all
we
that
don't,
long.
We don't want. So let's just move on past it. We don't need to.
All
do
right,
that.
fine. Another 8-win team that collapsed. The Philadelphia Eagles are up 21-0 over the Dallas Cowboys, and the final score becomes 24-21 Dallas. CeeDee Lamb's dropping the football, but that's no problem for George Pickens. I think the stat that I saw is that he's only about 15, 20 yards short of having more receiving yards than the entire Pittsburgh Steelers receiving core. That Dallas Cowboys offense gets it done with multiple players, multiple weapons. Javonte Williams continuing to pace that offense on the ground. And the Philadelphia Eagles, it's more of the same. Like a disconnect in the passing game. They were chasing points, and Saquon Barkley had that costly fumble, so kind of bizarre they don't go back to him. He finishes 10 carries, 22 yards. This is an offense that is, with the exception of the tush push, completely lost.
Well, that goes back to going through 3 offensive coordinators, which is very tough. Some of the personnel may be the same, but how one puts plays together and how one calls plays, obviously there is somewhat of a disconnect with Kevin Patullo, the offensive coordinator. And I believe it was Saquon Barkley who said after the game that the Dallas Cowboys wanted it more. And I think his head coach, Nick Sirianni, kind of disagreed with Saquon Barkley on that. But I am going to agree with Saquon Barkley. And here's why. When the game went into halftime, the score was 21-7, I believe, in favor of the Eagles. The Eagles scored no points in the third quarter or the fourth quarter, and Dallas capped it off the second half with 17 points. That clearly says to me that one team wanted it more because you failed to execute in the latter half of that particular game. What does that say? Now, your defense sets you up. There was, I believe, 2 fumbles, one on special teams, and Saquon fumbled the ball to set Dallas up in nice position. But I know there's one person who loved every moment of the game. Maybe not every moment, but I know he loved the second half, and that was Jerry Jones, right? Because when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, they were looking for somewhat of a marquee win. And having a marquee win within your division says a lot. So now the Cowboys are looking with their feet up and now their arms crossed like, yeah, we back. But I wouldn't necessarily say they're back. Are they competitive? Yes. Back, I'm not sure because I still don't trust their defense.
Well, hey, look, they stopped the run. It's the second game we get Kenny Clark and Quinnen Williams. They finally stopped the run.
I'm sorry. I thought there was 2 facets of the offense, running the ball and throwing the ball. So they have solved one riddle. Meanwhile, the other conundrum, well, you know what? That's a toss-up.
What you're saying is they needed to apply more pressure on Jalen Hurts, who had a season-high 289 yards and 39 pass attempts in that win? Is that what they need to do? If only there was like a pass rusher at the peak of his power in his prime, maybe 25, 26 years old. Those guys kind of, like multiple all-pros, those guys grow on trees, right?
No, they don't. But at the same time,
It's
I mean, look, I know it's rhetorical, but at the same time, look, if you want to play in the playoffs, which obviously that's where Jerry wants his team, how successful are you going to be? And we've seen these Cowboys get into the playoffs, and it was an early exit, right? So
Yep.
you're going to need to be able to stop teams when you want to, or it's going to be an all-out assault on who can score or who can get to 50 the quickest. But with CeeDee Lamb dropping passes, well, that's going to be tough too.
Well, we'll get to again these two teams that are embattled that got these emotional victories on Sunday with the quick turnaround because the Dallas Cowboys host the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll hit that triple header for Thanksgiving. I think that'd be fun to do. But first, Nick, look, this is the Hot Take Network for those guys, and you are based in Colorado, and we had Shador Sanders make his debut. It was all appointment watching for the entire state, considering your Broncos were on the bye. So I'm just going to remove myself from the conversation because I didn't feel I got any surprises from Shador Sanders, but I'm curious your assessment of his first NFL start in that victory, I believe 24-10 over the Raiders.
Well, I thought it was a great showing for him in his first, I guess, let's just say, full week of practice with the ones, which within itself is utterly ridiculous to say that a player
Really?
who was a rookie quarterback, when known as though you have two rookie quarterbacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of these guys have like pure NFL experience. One's drafted in the third, one is drafted in the fifth round, right? So you decide to give the third rounder all the first reps with the first
Correct.
team, even
Correct.
though there's no Joe Flacco, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are you preparing and developing a quarterback or both young quarterbacks? Because we know injuries happen in the NFL, as it took place with Dylan Gabriel, who was in concussion protocol. And the reason why they decided, by default, we have to go with Shador Sanders. And it goes to show what a solid week of practice could do. Now, let's keep it a buck. Yeah, you're playing against the Raiders. So with that being said, you're looking for certain things that would tell you that Shador can play in the NFL. Unlike so many other individuals saying that he was not, he showed you with a good, hefty week of work what he's capable of doing. And, oh, by the way, yeah, he got Dylan Sampson and Quishon Juggins. And for those individuals saying, well, hey, but the running backs did this. Well, the last time I checked, no quarterback, Joe Montana, or Joe Dirt ever won games by themselves. So you need your defense to help out. 10 sacks by Myles Garrett and the boys helped out, and Quishon Junkins and Dylan Sampson on that one outlet play that went race for 66 yards. That's what the NFL is. It is a team. So we can't lift up some while pushing down others and say, well, that really doesn't count. If that's the case, then we take it all off the board for every single quarterback. But I was happy with what I saw. There's still more for him to grow. There's going to be some growing pains moving forward when he faces off against the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep.
This is expected. And know why? When you look at the Cleveland Browns, tell me what weapons you really have. Now, your biggest weapons are your two running backs and your two tight ends. And with you being a New England Patriot guy, you know what a quarterback can do with 12 personnel with two good tight ends. But I don't think Kevin Stefanski is running his offense in that particular way. So Shador could struggle next week against a good San Francisco defense that they're going to blitz him because where are the skilled players for the Browns? Where are they? Tell me. Give them to me. Isaiah Bond, Jerry Jeudy. I love Jerry, right, as a person. But Jerry at times has dropped passes himself, so we're looking for consistency if the quarterback, whether Shador or Dylan, is to be successful.
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpack there, but I don't want to spend too much time because I do really appreciate your assessment and having followed Shador and that Colorado Buffalo team. So I guess, hey, shout out, that throw to Isaiah Bond. That's no joke. That's a quarterback bootleg on the run, evading the pass rush, and just throwing that ball on a rope. That was awesome. I will say, though, I'm kind of surprised to hear you talk about the amount of practice reps with the ones. If the head coach feels that one quarterback is your starter. I typically do not hear about most fifth-round rookie quarterbacks demanding or deserving or being entitled to those reps with that particular part of the offense. That plus, there's a lot of rookies that start on that offense now. You mean to mention the two rookie running backs, Harold Fannin, the tight end. These are guys that Shador had worked with over the summer. So, I'm pleased when I see throws like that to Isaiah Bond. And frankly, as much of a Dylan Gabriel supporter as I was in comparison to Shador Sanders, that swing pass to Dylan Sampson that, he takes up the field 66 yards. Dylan Gabriel threw that same pass into the stands, like 4 rows up 2 weeks ago. So it's being able to evaluate a quarterback based on how they operate within the confines of the offense. My biggest concern was Shador dropping back, going backwards in retreat to try to buy time in the pocket and getting some unfortunate, untimely sacks for that. So we'll see if that happens against a better team than the Raiders, who have now fired Chip Kelly. Basically everybody with the exception of Pete Carroll and his kids. If you're on that coaching staff, you have to pack your bags. So we can sort of put the Raiders down for now, and evaluate quarterback production and performances on a curve, knowing full well that when the Denver Broncos take care of their business the next time they see the Raiders, Bo Nix and then Broncos, like they've got it. They can take care of their business. That's a good quality win against the Raiders for the Broncos, but of course not for Shador and the Browns. Triple header for Thanksgiving, Nick. I teased the Chiefs and the Cowboys. Do you want to start there, or are you more intrigued going chronologically with the classic Green Bay Detroit game? And as it stands right now, the Detroit Lions at 7-4 outside of the NFC playoffs.
Well, let's start right there because that's the first game of the season. Not the season, but Thanksgiving.
The Thanksgiving season.
Thanksgiving season. And I think for me, it's going to be a day of giving for the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is, I mean, looking at where they're currently positioned, it seems as though, well, they've kind of lost a little of their juice. But look, anytime you have Jahmyr Gibbs to throw it to or to run it, I mean, that dude was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, insane. I've never played Madden, so I don't know what's the speed button. What's
there's just the like you flip the you flip the joystick, and then like if you want to do a little turbo, is that one of the trigger buttons, like a little R2 or an RT?
Man, I'm asking you because I don't know. I've never played Madden before.
I was not a father the last time I played Madden. I haven't fired up the console. It was a Netflix machine basically by the time I started dating my now wife. So I haven't hit the sticks. We got to get Blaine in on this. Our real video game guru. And the fact that I'm saying that now, I sound even older than you do, Nick.
Well, listen, just for the record, remember, I didn't say that. I just said I didn't play Madden. I've never played a Madden. But whatever the button is for speed, he has that times 10.
Yeah.
So that always gives the Detroit Lions a shot in every game because he is a home run hitter. I think in the game they played recently, I think it was like a third down play, and they needed a big play. They just gave it to him, and then 40 yards, he's out. He outreaches everyone. And looking at the Green Bay Packers defense, I think he's going to do the same thing to that Packers defense. And the Lions have been trying to find themselves offensively. But to me, when you stick to the basics, you stick to your strength, and you hand the ball off and you utilize your running backs, to me, that bodes well for them.
Okay. I mean, I think that based on weapons alone, the Packers still trying to figure things out. Josh Jacobs banged up as well. You tip your cap to that Lions offense, but the defensive issues that they've had really makes me think that they are susceptible to a Packers running game that is committed to doing it. Emmanuel Wilson picking up the baton for Josh Jacobs. I think this one is going to be a hard-fought NFC North battle that by sheer force of will, and certainly that Packers defense, getting Jared Goff on the run will be interesting to see. Look, this isn't going to be Jared Goff playing outdoors anymore. He's in a dome pretty much the rest of the season, either at home or whenever they go on the road, they're going to be in a dome. I think just week 18 against the Bears is the last time he's going to be outdoors. So it is really within the Packers' right that they are in the driver's seat. That tie against Dallas has them firmly ahead of a 7-4 Lions team. Nick, you once traveled to Dallas for a Thanksgiving game, I believe, as a member of
Yes,
the Denver Broncos.
yes.
Super disappointed. I was hoping at first it was 2001 when Creed performed the halftime show, but you were there a few years later in '05. Do you give the Kansas City Chiefs as good of a chance as you had when you went into Dallas in 2005 and beat them in overtime? Do you want to talk
Of
about
course.
2005? Or you want to talk about these Chiefs?
Well, listen, I mean, of course, I give them a fighting chance. They were able to come back at home against the Colts and win in overtime. Now, this task is going to be rather tall for them because we talked about George Pickens. And I don't know this for sure, but
Right?
I'm expecting CeeDee Lamb, he's going to do a better job hauling in passes from Dak Prescott. But when you look at this team offensively, I mean, the win against the Eagles gave the Dallas Cowboys a lot of confidence that they can win a game on Thanksgiving and they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs because let's be totally honest. These are not the same Kansas City Chiefs from 5 years ago. Everyone looks at the Kansas City Chiefs and they circle it like that's a
Yeah.
game where we can win. Usually it's like, we're not sure, whatever. But that's the way they feel because you still got Jake Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb, you got Pickens, and you
Yeah.
mentioned Javonte Williams has run the ball pretty well, and that's the one thing that Kansas City hasn't done this season, even with a healthy Isaiah Pacheco, is
Yeah.
run the ball. So I'm
Yeah.
going to give the nod to Dallas, keeping the momentum moving forward.
Adam, man. Kareem Hunt was like the first 100-yard rusher that the Chiefs have had in a year or two. Like their commitment to the running game has essentially just been Patrick Mahomes on third down, picking up first downs with his legs. I should have looked that number up, but it just watching that game on Sunday, it was like anytime they were third and medium, third and short, Mahomes would pick up the first down with his legs more often than not. So I think that's an added element that, look, they still have not figured out the deep ball in 3 years, but Mahomes using his legs has been an added weapon that as long as they can keep that Dallas Cowboys offense off the field, they could just be as likely to snuff out any hopes of the Cowboys having a high-scoring offense, much like your Denver Broncos did 20 years ago. We'll wrap up Thanksgiving quickly here because we do want to mention the potential. Again, this is Monday evening. All signs point to Joe Burrow returning for a 3-8 Cincinnati Bengals team, going on the road to Baltimore, who at 6-5 just took over the AFC North. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh was 5-1, Baltimore 1-5, and yet here we are. Like Baltimore is firmly in the driver's seat,
Yes, sir.
and they get a Joe Burrow who is busted up, and a Jamar Chase coming off suspension. T. Higgins already ruled out for this one, but Baltimore's defense in its own right has had their struggles.
Well, yeah, Baltimore defense has had their struggle, and at times Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens offense have seen their fair share of trouble. But in this case, I'm going to lean heavily towards the Baltimore Ravens. I know it's a defensive game, divisional game, and usually in those divisional games, it's like, well, it's anyone's game. But with the fact that Joe Flacco's done a decent job, and I don't think that Joe Burrow is going to come back.
Okay.
My thing is, why
So we
would
get
you?
the Flacco revenge game. I'm into that, Nick.
Well, maybe that may be the case. And once again, I look at Flacco not being able to move the ball down the field and not having a healthy T. Higgins. That's going to impact him in some kind of way. But I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals should put Joe Burrow in harm's way. You were 3-8, right?
Yep.
We're going into week 13. What are the odds that you're going to go on some sensational run and then put yourself back in the mix? You know what? We're going to pump our brakes and say, you know what? 2025 didn't work out well for us. So if you throw Joe Burrow back in there, let's say he gets injured again.
Yeah.
You know how disastrous that would be. It's like, no, let Flacco play this out. We're going to play it for 2026 and hope that things will be much better.
Well, they'd be 2 games out with the tiebreaker with 5 games left in the season. I don't want to say it's not over until it's over, but at the same time, Like, I'm with you. Like, for as much cap hell this team is in, they're not built for long term. So you need to make sure Joe Burrow is prepared, ready, and capable. It doesn't serve them to play him, but if he wants to play, Nick, who's the organization to stand in their way? Then the team.
Wait. Hold on,
Joe
Alan.
Flacco, Joe Burrow. Why am I saying Flacco? I want Flacco to play. Joe Burrow probably wants
Well,
to
well,
play.
I,
That's
I
my
get
point.
the confusion because both guys are named Joe, right? But so I understand. But even if Joe Burrow wants to play, there is a classic rule of thumb that says sometimes you have to protect the player
Yep.
from
From
himself.
themselves.
Exactly. So you don't put him in that situation and then he gets injured. Then it's like, gosh darn it, I wish we didn't do that. So the organization has to think long term, not short term, because this team is in salary cap purgatory,
Yep.
right?
Oh no, it's a
And
disaster. It's
yes,
like almost 40% of the salary cap tied into Burrow and those two receivers. It's
yes.
unheard of.
So if he goes down again, what then? What then? So they need to think.
They're right where they are now, 3-8.
Well, once again, think about the future. I know right now it seems as though, well, no, we're not out of it. The season is still going. There's a chance. Well, there's not a snowball chance in hell that somehow the Bengals are going to flip things like the Baltimore Ravens have done. I don't have confidence in them. They can prove me wrong, but what say you?
Well, I say the Bengals are not a properly run organization. You have more of an inside look at that than I certainly would. So applying facts and logic and reason to watch how they operate just isn't going to help, isn't going to do us any good. What I would rather do, Nick, is talk about Thanksgiving itself. And as we get on out of here, Nick, my Thursday is looking like a hike in the morning, probably get back to the house around the second half of Green Bay, Detroit, have that on while we're doing our baking, getting everything else prepared, and we're sitting down to dinner before Cincinnati and Baltimore kicks off. Tell me what your Thanksgiving's looking like with you and the family.
Well, first and foremost, we're not doing any hiking. The only hike I'm going to do is from my bedroom to the kitchen, to the sofa. That's the extent of my hike right there. And guess what? I don't even have to put on shoes with I guess grip to grab the gravel so I don't fall. So I don't have to worry about that. It is house shoes for me, and I'm hoping to start the cooking the day before. So all we're doing is warming things up, because the idea of trying to cook and watch the game at the same time, my wife will tell you, nah, I
Yep.
don't have the attention span for that.
We got certain things we start the night before. Got to do the bird day of. You got to do, there's a handful of
Why?
things.
Why you got to do the day of?
It's just how it works, Nick. It's fine fresh. It's fine leftover. Nick, there's too many things to just leave for the day before. He's Nick Ferguson. He's celebrating Thanksgiving on Wednesday, or we could call him Nick Leftovers Ferguson. You can follow him at Nick Ferguson _25 on all social, breaking down tape, taking a look at the NFL, overreactions to Shador Sanders, whatever you want from Nick. He's your man. I'm Alex Hardy. You can check us out on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be reacting to week 13, the Thanksgiving games, and of course talking about more holidays as that season is upon us. So until next time, Nick, what do you have to say to the people?
Hey man, don't ever put that pumpkin pie in front of me. Never, ever, ever, ever. No.
It's
Who eats
pecan
pumpkin
pie.
pie anyway?
Pecan pie is the best Thanksgiving pie.
Pecan?
Pecan.
No, I'm sorry.